ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I got my good friend Dominick here from Fantasy Hot Read. Dominick, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm kind of a little upset that the Saints lost what should have been an easy game last week. We're getting about a foot of snow here right now. But on the bright side of things, Sarah Fuller was able to play again for Vanderbilt, and she got the first points ever scored by a woman in a college football game with a field goal and a couple of extra points.
So happy for her that she was able to wrap up her career at Vandy on a high note. She's headed to North Texas. Congratulations to Sarah Fuller. I'm so happy for you, girl. Keep it going. Hopefully North Texas will give you the same shot to do that. For me, my Broncos won and my Vols won against Sarah Fuller's team, the Commodores. So, hey, it was a pretty good weekend for me. Well, you guys, here we are. We are at week 15. You know what's exciting about week 15? Saturday games. Let's get started first, though, with our Thursday night matchup. We got the 4-9 Los Angeles Chargers headed to Vegas to face the 7-6 Raiders. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Chargers aren't really fighting for anything right now other than to prove that Anthony Lynn actually does know how to use time management at the end of a half or at the end of a game, which obviously he doesn't. I don't think he'll be back next year. Herbert has been great this year. He's probably the rookie of the year, especially if you're going to give it to a quarterback like most teams do. Eckler should be a monster in this game. The Raiders just fired their defense coordinator and Paul Gunther. That means they're probably going to go back to what they're used to, especially since they only had 3 or 4 days to prepare. So they're probably going to go back to that Tampa cover 2 defense that John Gruden's used to running. If that's the case, they're going to give up a ton of yards on the ground to the running back, so that's going to be Austin Eckler, so I think he's going to do great in this game. That being said, Derek Carr's been playing very good this year, as well as the team. Nelson Aguilar has 6 touchdowns so far this year. He had 100 yards again last week. Josh Jacobs should have a very good game as well this week, especially if the Raiders are ahead, which they should be. The Raiders have something to play for. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. The Chargers, like we said, have really nothing to play for when it comes to the playoffs, so I am going to take the Raiders in this game, and I do think it's going to be pretty high scoring as well. Maybe not like the Baltimore-Cleveland game, but it's going to get up there, I'm pretty sure.
Chargers may have nothing to play for in the way of they have 0 shot whatsoever to making the playoffs, but what the Chargers are trying to play for is Anthony Lynn's job, because there is a better than, let's say, 80% chance that Anthony Lynn will not be back next season unless he does something, let's say, in these next couple of weeks. Hell, even then, I can't say for sure that he'll be able to hang on to his job. They have not been improving at all this season. The time management thing is so horrendous to see every single week, in particular at the end of halves and at the end of games. It's ridiculous what is happening to this team, especially when you see how well Justin Herbert is playing. It's painful to see this team lose the way that they lose when you see how well Herbert is playing. Again, like Dominick said, this kid may be up for Rookie of the Year. I wouldn't be surprised at all. In the meantime, Vegas, like you said, has something to play for. And the way that they've been playing this season, well, like you said, there's been some issues on defense. That's why they got rid of their DC. But the offense has been playing very well. In particular, Derek Carr now seems to have this connection with Nelson Aguilar, which I didn't expect. He's always had a connection with Darren Waller. But to see Nelson Aguilar really start to flourish there in Vegas after having such a disappointing time in Philly, it's good to see. I'm glad that he's had a renaissance there for himself. And then Josh Jacobs, y'all know how I go on and on about this kid. Love this kid. So good to see him doing well this season. He wasn't just a fluke. He wasn't just a rookie wonder. He really is a great kid. He really is a great running back. So I'm glad to see it. Do I think the Chargers can pull off a win there in Vegas against the Raiders, with the Raiders putting everything on the line to get themselves into the playoffs? I'd like to see it. I just don't see it happening. I really don't, because I'm so confident right now in what the Raiders are putting together and the way that Derek Carr suddenly has this great receiver in Nelson Aguilar. Happy to see that going. Always love seeing Josh Jacobs doing well. Definitely giving this game to the Raiders. And moving on to Saturday, we got the 10-3 Buffalo Bills headed to Denver to face the 5-8 Broncos. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, this one's going to be tricky because I know Buffalo needs to keep winning. They just came off a great game against Pittsburgh. Well, great for them, not for Pittsburgh, where they beat them on Sunday night. Josh Allen is playing very good right now. So is Stephon Diggs. He's tied right now for the franchise record for receptions in a season, with Eric Moulds from 2000, I believe it was 2003. So he's going to break that this week. Obviously, Devin Singletary's been doing pretty good. Zach Moss has been off and on this year. Their defense is finally starting to come around. We thought they'd be good all year, and they weren't. They were pretty bad actually at the beginning of the year, but they're starting to get stronger now. Denver really has nothing on offense. I know Drew Lock had a very good game last week, but that was against the Carolina Panthers, who have very little on defense, and I don't think they're going to be able to do the same thing against Buffalo. So I do think it's going to be a pretty close game because they always seem to play that way in Denver, but I do think that Buffalo is going to win the game.
And sadly, I hate to have to do this, but I'm going to have to agree with you. You guys, that win that Buffalo pulled off against the Steelers was mighty impressive. Considering that at this point, the Steelers had only lost one game. And I personally thought that they were going to turn it around. There's no way they'd lose 2 in a row. But then you see the way that the Bills are playing right now. Oh, hell, the Steelers might lose it. And they did. Josh Allen is playing on some next level type shit. And I don't know how else to say it, but he's on some next level game. And to have a receiver there right now and Stephon Diggs and the way Diggs is playing right now with Josh Allen is so good. I love this team. I love what they're doing. I like this connection. Devin Singletary's been playing well. You're right. The defense has been struggling, but now they're starting to really put it together. They really, really showed that off last week, and I was so glad to finally see that happen. They're 10-3, you guys. They're headed to Denver. Denver got pulled off a win last week. They're still 5-8. Drew Lock has had an up and down season. The running game, the problem has been that Phillip Lindsay hasn't been healthy. Melvin Gordon hasn't been healthy. I haven't seen a real consistency out of Lindsay even when he has been healthy. They've been leaning more on Melvin Gordon, which actually when he is healthy and when he is out there is doing pretty well. But they're a mediocre team. That's what I can say. And the problem more I tend to think is on their defense. They've been decimated by injuries. They lost another corner this past week. They're going against this Buffalo team that's just lighting it up. And I expect them, having now lost another corner, this is going to really hurt them. Even the fact that they are there at home and people struggle with that thin air in Denver, I expect Buffalo to struggle a little bit, maybe in, let's say, in the first quarter, maybe even the first half. But at the end of the day, Buffalo is going to get it done. They're going to get the W, giving this game to the Bills. And next up, we got the 4-9 Carolina Panthers headed to Green Bay to face the 10-3 Packers. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, Green Bay has a lot to play for in this game. They need to keep winning to keep the number 1 seed from the New Orleans Saints. Right now, they're tied in record, but they do have the tiebreaker, so they do need to keep winning. Carolina lost last week. Teddy Bridgewater played decent, didn't play great. They're not going to have Christian McCaffrey back again for this game. They should have DJ Moore back for this game. Curtis Samuel should do well also, but the secondary for Green Bay is extremely good, especially with Jair Alexander. He's going to be able to lock down DJ Moore most likely, so that's going to leave the running game, which Mike Davis should have a good game in this because we know that Green Bay's run defense is bad. They're 30th in the league right now. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind right now, though. He's got 39 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's insane. He's the MVP of the league. He's going to prove it again this week. He's going to go up and down the field on Carolina. He's going to just do anything he wants to, especially with Devontae Adams, who had 2 more touchdowns last week. So I do think that Green Bay is going to win this one by probably 10 points or so.
Carolina lost a disappointing one, but not a surprising one. Teddy Bridgewater is a good, not a great quarterback. He's had some really good games this season, but then, he's dealt with some injuries. They're without Christian McCaffrey again. That's always a big factor for them. Even with Mike Davis playing well, the loss of Christian McCaffrey is very significant for them. Now, fortunately, they are going to have DJ Moore back, and that'll help with the deep threat because that's what DJ Moore tends to be along with Robbie Anderson. I expect it to be interesting for a while, but the Packers, man, the way this team is playing right now, my goodness gracious. Aaron Rodgers is on a mission. And that mission is to get his team to the Super Bowl. He's ready to win another one. Will they be able to achieve that? Who knows for sure. But right now, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the reason they are is for the way that he is playing right now. He's got a great running game in Aaron Jones. He's got a phenomenal receiver in Devontae Adams. Their run defense is not great at all, but their passing defense is solid. I'm not worried about that at all. And I'm definitely not worried about them going against the Panthers, giving this game to the Packers, especially because they're there at home. Moving on to Sunday, we got the 8-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed to Atlanta to face the 4-9 Falcons. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this could be a tough game for Tampa Bay. We know that they want to try and run the ball. They may not be able to do that. Ronald Jones is likely to miss this game with a broken finger. He just had surgery on it. So that's going to lead them going back to Leonard Fournette, who missed last week as a healthy scratch. I still think he's good enough to do something in this game, although Atlanta is one of the best teams in the league, surprisingly, against running backs. So that's because they're so terrible against quarterbacks, with Mike Evans being there, as well as Antonio Brown still being there, even though he hasn't really done a whole lot, as well as Chris Godwin and even Rob Gronkowski. Tom Brady's should have a very good game in this one. Atlanta, it's going to be indoors, so they're not going to have to worry about weather. It's going to be during the daytime, so Tom Brady's not going to have to worry about missing his bedtime or his curfew or anything. Julio Jones is likely not going to be in for this game. Todd Gurley, if he doesn't get a touchdown, he really does nothing. So I am going to take Tampa Bay in this one to win the game.
Atlanta is just terrible. Whether or not Julio is healthy and will be able to play on Sunday will not make a difference whatsoever. They don't have it together. Is it that on the defense more than the offense? It's actually a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, but for sure it's on that defense. They're going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 8-5 right now, meaning they've had some terrible games, which they have, but they are playing for something. They're still in the hunt. They still have a shot of making the playoffs, and hopefully they will, because I always loved seeing Tom Brady in the mix, and it'll be good to have him in there with a different team. It'll be interesting. I'll say that for sure. If they don't have Rojo in, it's not going to be a total loss. Leonard Fournette, he can get something done. Let's say that. But they don't have to lean heavily on him because they still got Tom Brady. They still got a great passing game. I'm not worried about them. They might, give up some points on that defense, but at the end of the day, the Buccaneers are going to blow past the Falcons. Definitely giving this one to the Buccaneers. Next up, we got the 5-8 San Francisco 49ers headed to Dallas to face the 4-9 Cowboys. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, we keep picking against the 49ers against good offenses, and this is another good offense in Dallas. They played a good game last week. They put up 30 points against Cincinnati. That wasn't really much of the offense, though. They didn't really do a whole lot on offense. Ezekiel Elliott's had a very disappointing year. Amari Cooper had a touchdown last week, which was good to see. Andy Dalton is doing the best that Andy Dalton can do, but again, he is Andy Dalton, so that's tough. The offensive line is just trash right now. Their best player, who has been there all year, Zach Martin, is obviously out for the year now, so they're pretty much down the scraps right now on the offensive line. The defense is terrible. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of injuries with San Francisco as well. One thing we do know about Nick Mullins is he's going to throw the ball. Samuels is not going to be there this week, so he's going to be out probably the rest of the year. They still don't have Kittle. They still don't have Garoppolo, so it's going to be down to Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Reed. We don't know if Raheem Mostert is going to play in this game, so it's going to be down to Jeff Wilson. I just think that their defense is starting to get stronger. They're starting to get some players back. They have Richard Sherman back, and they've been able to hold down some good offenses. They were able to hold down the Los Angeles Rams a couple weeks ago. Washington isn't a great offense, but they were still able to hold them to 23 points, and 14 of those points were on defense, so they held them to 9 points. So I think they're going to be able to do the same thing generally to Dallas, so I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I'm going to take San Francisco to win it.
San Francisco has been kind of disappointing to me. The biggest reason for that, I'll say, is definitely the massive amount of injuries that they suffered early on. And now they've still got more injuries out there. Jimmy G is still out. Kittle's still out. Debo's now gone out. Their defense, yes, they got Richard Sherman back, but they still have other players out on that defense. So they were decimated by injuries. So understand that where they are really, really has to do with the fact that they were plagued early on and they really never were able to get off the ground. They are headed to Dallas, and these Cowboys are not much better. My goodness. Is it for the same reason though? Absolutely. Just decimated by injuries early on in the season. They've been leaning on Andy Dalton because they lost Dak very early in the season. This is going to be a low-scoring game for sure because I don't have confidence in either one of these defenses. Even though I love seeing Aldon Smith doing well there for Dallas. He is my vote now for comeback player of the year. Love what I'm seeing him doing there on that defense more than what I'm seeing out of this offense. Zeke has been inconsistent at best, horrendous at worst, but the passing game has still looked pretty good. He's still got great receivers there. At the end of the day, Dallas is playing at home. As much as I would love to take the 49ers, I know I pick against them every week, and I feel terrible to do it, and I'm going to do it again here. I got to take the Cowboys, you guys. I just feel like they're going to get it done at home. Next up, we got the 5-8 Detroit Lions headed to Tennessee to face the 9-4 Titans. Dominic, who you got?
This one's extremely easy for me. It's not even a contest. Detroit has the worst rush defense in the league. They're going against quite possibly right now the best running back in the league at 215 yards last week. Matthew Stafford is likely not going to play in this game. Kenny G is going to be out for this game. Jeff Okudah, their best cornerback, is going to be out in this game. They have one of the worst pass defenses as well. Tannehill's going to have a field day. Derrick Henry's going to have a field day. A.J. Brown's going to have a field day. Corey Davis is going to have a field day. Jonnu Smith might actually do something in this game and have a reception. So I'm going to say that Tennessee should win this game, and they'll probably put up 35 or 40 points doing it.
Detroit is trash. And again, it's another one of these teams that's been decimated by injuries. Players come in and out of injuries. Likely not going to see Stafford this week. Likely not going to see Galladay this week. It's going to be tough for them to get a win, even if those guys were healthy, because they're going against Tennessee. And the way Tennessee is playing on that offense right now is something special to watch. Derrick Henry should be in the discussion at least for Offensive Player of the Year. I don't know that I can make the case for MVP, but I can at least make the case for Offensive Player of the Year, just the way that he is playing. My goodness, I always love seeing him run because he's just running over folks. Tannehill has this really good connection with A.J. Brown. That's fun to watch. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing out of them, this kind of new resurgence this season, even though they've had a good season last year, but the way they're playing this year is just even better. So Detroit, I'm so sorry, you guys. I can't in good faith pick them in this game. Definitely got to get this game to the Titans. Next up, we got the 4-9 Houston Texans headed to Indianapolis to face the 9-4 Colts. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor finally did something last week. He had 2 touchdowns, 150 yards in the run game. T.Y. Hilton's come on strong. The past 2 weeks, he has 4 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. We talked about it 2 weeks ago when he played the Texans, that in his career before this year, in 16 games against the Texans, he has 85 receptions for 1,520 yards and 10 touchdowns. He had 2 more touchdowns and over 100 yards. Last time they played 2 weeks ago, he's going to do the same thing in this one. That offensive line is really coming together to protect Phillip Rivers. The Houston defense is absolutely terrible. We know that J.J. Watt can't do it all by himself. He's getting a little bit older. He's going to be 32. They lost their best running back to David Johnson's been out for a while. He should be back in this game, but it's not going to matter. Will Fuller's not going to be there. They're not going to have their best defensive back either. So it's going to be an onslaught in this one as well. I think that the Colts are just playing out of their mind right now. They haven't scored less than 21 points since their bye week, except for against the Baltimore Ravens when they had 10 points. Other than that, they haven't been less than 21 points. They put over 40 points up 2 times since then, including last week against the Raiders. I think they may do it again this week against Houston at home.
This is another team that I'm so disappointed in, and that's the Texans. Some of that had to do with Bill O'Brien and the mess that he made there as far as like getting rid of Newt. That was so stupid on his part. David Johnson really hasn't done much since he's been there, and that's when he's been healthy, and he hasn't been healthy a whole lot this season, which wasn't surprising because he was kind of injury prone prior to getting here. The fact that they lost Will Fuller for the season, the fact that they lost Roby for the season, that shit sucks. And now the way that they are trying to lean everything all on Deshaun Watson, I get it. The kid is fast. He can scramble to the end zone. But when they know that that's the only play you have in your playbook, because you can't lean fully on Duke Johnson, you can't fully lean on David Johnson either, because you never know which one's going to go out with an injury. So that means they know that they can double and triple up on Deshaun Watson. Come on, you guys. I feel bad for the kid. I feel terrible that the situation that they put him in. I'm hoping that they'll be able to make some changes in the offseason to bring him in some other receivers. We'll see what happens there. Indianapolis, meanwhile, is just playing out their mind good right now. Phillip Rivers has a resurgence there in Indy, and I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see him playing so well. I'm glad he finally has some good receivers there that he has a good connection with. You guys, there's no way in holy hell that I could pick the Texans in this game, just the way that Indy is playing right now and how terrible the Texans are playing. Definitely got to give this game to the Colts. You guys, I just love what I'm seeing out of them right now and have no faith whatsoever in the Texans. Next up, we got the 6-7 New England Patriots headed to Miami to face the 8-5 Dolphins. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, the Patriots are coming off a terrible game. Cam Newton played awful. He played so bad they actually pulled him for Jarrett Stidham. Newton is going to be back in this game, though. They're going to have Sony Michel in this game. We'll have to see what Jacoby Myers can do, if he can do anything in this one. They still have Damian Harris there as well. On the other side of the ball, it's going to be Tua again. He's going to be throwing to somebody. We're not exactly sure who. It's probably most likely going to be Len Bowden and Adam Shaheen. Mike Gesicki's probably going to miss this game with a shoulder injury he suffered last week. Jakeem Grant is probably going to be out of this game with an injury he suffered last week. Devontae Parker is going to probably be out with it one he suffered last week with an injury to his hamstring. They're still not going to have Myles Gaskin in this one. They won't have Matt Breida either. They're not going to have Salvin Ahmed. So that being said, it's going to be down to DeAndre Washington. That being said, their defense is out of this world. They picked off Patrick Mahomes 3 times last week. They have a turnover in every game this year. Their secondary is amazing with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So that being said, I think they're going to be good enough, and I think they are going to get the win there in Miami. So I'm going to take the Dolphins to beat New England.
This is another one. I love this kid, Tua. In this case, though, as much as I love Tua, who the hell is Tua throwing to this week? You name it, that person is out pretty much. I mean, we're down to like the backup's backup at this point. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that Adam Shaheen doesn't have a chance to maybe possibly catch a touchdown. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Tua can't run a couple in his daggone self. They're going against New England. New England has been, I don't even want to say decent, because at this point they're not even decent. But you know, Cam is back. That should be something. Yeah, Sony Michel there. Maybe he can get something going with Jacoby Myers in this particular game. Listen, you guys, Xavier Howard on the Dolphins in that secondary is just, my goodness. If you guys saw this one-handed interception that he made last week, oh my God. Him alone is something to worry about. He will keep this team in the game for sure. It's just, who the hell is Tua throwing to? That is what really concerns me. It's not the defense. The defense will keep them in the game. It's just, I feel like right now Cam has more weapons simply because his team is a little bit healthier right now. So I'm going to lean the other way. I'm going to say the Patriots get the win simply because there's just too many question marks and too many injuries with the Dolphins right now. Next up, we got the 6-7 Chicago Bears headed to Minnesota to face the 6-7 Vikings. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this is that proverbial trap game that I talk about almost every week. Chicago's coming off their best game of the year against Houston. They won that game 36-7. They just dominated Houston on every aspect. Minnesota lost last week. It was uglier than it actually should have been. Their kicker missed 3 field goals as well as an extra point. Otherwise, they would have been extremely close in that game. They could have actually pulled it out if it was a little different. The scoring would have been totally different. The way they played would have been different. They could have actually gone down there and beaten Tampa Bay. They didn't. They're coming back into this one. They know they have to win this game at home to even have a chance at the playoffs. So this is the trap game. Like I said, Chicago's coming off their best game of the year. Minnesota's coming off a very, very ugly game. So I'm going to take Minnesota to beat Chicago in this one.
Yes, Chicago got a win. Kudos for them. I'm always shocked when they get a win, I feel like, because I don't expect it. What keeps them in games is their defense more than anything. And then if their defense can keep them in it, Mitchell Trubisky will get just enough done. And David Montgomery, my goodness, that child can run. And so he'll keep them in the game. In particular, that defense will keep it close. Minnesota, it's so much more I expect out of this team because I expect more out of Kirk Cousins. He has a ridiculous contract, so he should be playing way better than what he is. He's a so-so quarterback, I feel like. He has Adam Thielen there. Dalvin Cook is going to run all over the place. This kid, Justin Jefferson, is my pick for Rookie of the Year. You guys, this is a hard one for me to pick because I have no faith in either one of these teams, but at the end of the day, somebody's going to get that W. I'm going to give it to Chicago. I just feel like the Bears are going to be able to pull it off just because I have a little bit more faith in their defense right now. So giving this one to the Bears. Next up, we got the 9-4 Seattle Seahawks headed to Washington to face the 6-7 football team. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, I love the way this Washington football team is playing. Seattle's coming all the way across the country again. They did the same thing against Philadelphia, and they looked very sluggish. That game was not as bad a game as this one because Washington has a much better defense than Philadelphia does right now. Their front four is amazing. Chase Young had a return fumble for a touchdown last week. They had 2 touchdowns on defense last week. Russell Wilson has been playing a little iffy as of late. Last week not included because they did play the Jets, and that doesn't really count. They put up 40 last week. They're not going to put up 40 this week. The only issue with Washington is we don't know if it's going to going to be Alex Smith, who has a calf issue right now, so he may not be able to play. If not, it's going to be Dwayne Haskins. If it's Dwayne Haskins, they have no shot. If it's Alex Smith, they at least have a shot in this game. But since we don't know who it's going to be and they don't really have much on offense, I do think Seattle's offense is going to be good enough. So I do think Seattle's going to come across the country and beat Washington.
Seattle has had some games where I had to question why the hell they lost the game. The game against the Rams in particular, the way they played in that game, just stinking up the place, my goodness. This week, you guys, they're going against Washington. Washington has a very stout defense. My pick for defensive rookie of the year definitely has to go to this kid, Chase Young. He is something special to watch. Love what he is doing there. But their problem is they don't have a consistent offense. Some of that has to do with the injuries that they've suffered at the QB position. If Dwayne Haskins has to start, I have no confidence whatsoever that Washington could even pull out a win, even if the defense keeps them in it. Even if Chase, is able to recover another fumble or something to that effect, I just really feel like there's not a shot for them to win because their offense isn't strong enough. Whereas Seattle has Russell Wilson there, and he has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Definitely got to get this one to Seattle. Next up, we got the 1-12 Jacksonville Jaguars headed to Baltimore to face the 8-5 Ravens. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, let's make this one just quick. I'm going to give this one to the Mad Pooper and give it say that Lamar Jackson's going to run all over them, much like he had to run back to the bathroom on Monday night. So I'm going to take Baltimore in this one easy.
The only good thing that I could say for Jacksonville is they finally decided to go back to Gardner Minshew. So yay for Gardner for putting up enough of a stink, and the fact that they haven't been winning games. That kind of, I guess, played a factor in it as well. They're going to get their ass kicked, though, because they're going against the Ravens, and Ravens have a stout defense, and Ravens have Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens have Mark Ingram, and Ravens have J.K. Dobbins. Come on, let's be serious now. This game isn't even going to be interesting or fun. Definitely giving this one to the Ravens. Next up, this one we're going to do even faster. We got the winless 0-13 New York Jets headed to Los Angeles to face the 9-4 Rams. Dominic, let's go.
Yeah, the Rams are great on defense. Their offense is very good. Cam Akers had a great game last week. The Jets only put up 3 points against Seattle, and that was the Seattle defense who is getting better, but is not near as good as the Rams are. This could be a shutout either way. The line right now is 17 points, and I think the Rams could easily cover that.
The Jets are trash. Every week, I'm still hoping they finally figure out that they need to move on from Gase. They haven't figured it out yet. I don't know why they haven't. Whatever. Maybe they'll wait to the offseason. Don't care. They suck. They're terrible. Rams are doing very, very, very well right now. Their defense is tremendous. Sam Darnold has no shot whatsoever. He's going to get killed in this game, and I feel bad for the kid. Definitely giving this game to the Rams. Next up, we got the 4-8-1 Philadelphia Eagles headed to Arizona to face the 7-6 Cardinals. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts looked good last week going against the Saints. Saints hadn't let up a 100-yard rusher in 55 games coming into last week. Last week, they gave up 2 of them. One of them was Jalen Hurts. The other one was Miles Sanders. Doug Peterson finally realized that he had to run Miles Sanders. He's the best player on the field, and he finally figured out how to use him. The defense in Arizona is not good. They played really good last week. One of my favorite players on their defense, Hassan Reddick, because he went to Temple in Philadelphia here, had a franchise record 5 sacks last week. He also had 3 forced fumbles last week. He's not going to do that this week. Jalen Hurts is a lot more mobile than Daniel Jones was last week. Daniel Jones was hampered badly by his hamstring. Jalen Hurts is not going to be. But the offensive line in Philadelphia, which we've talked about all year, has been terrible. They're going to have their 13th different starting offensive line in 14 games this week. They lost Lane Johnson a couple weeks ago. He went on IR. His replacement, Driscoll, at right tackle, went out after this week. So now they're going to have to replace him with somebody else again as well. Arizona, I think Kyler Murray is finally getting a little healthier. DeAndre Hopkins has been held down for the past couple of weeks, but that's because he's been going against some very, very good secondaries. He had to go up against Jalen Ramsey, had to go up against Bradbury last week. Darius Slay is still in the concussion protocol. He's likely not going to be there. Their other quarterback, Maddox, is going to be out for this game as well. They lost Rodney McLeod, their safety, to a torn ACL, so he's going to be out as well. So they're going to be down a ton of people in the secondary, which is already bad for Philadelphia. So I do think that Arizona is going to be able to win this one at home over Philadelphia.
Even switching quarterbacks to Jalen Hurts, and don't get me wrong, I'm impressed by what this kid was able to do. It's still the Eagles, and they still got so many question marks. It's so many things wrong with this team, and mainly that has to do with the defense. I'm glad to see that Jalen Hurts finally got a shot. I'm good to see that he's got an arm on him. It's great to see that he can scramble. I'm sorry that he got hurt a couple of weeks ago, but he's healthy and he's doing well. Miles Sanders is able to ground and pound. But you guys, they're going against Arizona, and Arizona has something to prove. They're 7-6. They're still in the hunt. Keep that in mind. So they've got to win some of these games going down, and that means that they got to get this win against the Eagles. Kyler Murray has been dealing with this shoulder injury. I think it's starting to heal a little bit more for him. I'm hoping that he can really get it going with Nuke this week against the Eagles. Great to see that if that happens. Guys, got to give this game to the Cardinals. They're still in the hunt. They have something to play for. I like this defense. Think that they'll be able to get it done against the Eagles. Let's go, Cards. Next up, we got the 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs headed to New Orleans to face the 10-3 Saints. Dominic, what you got?
Yeah, I think both of these teams looked past last week's opponents. Obviously, the Chiefs came back and won, but they went down early. They were just able to come back and dominate. They were able to click it on. The Saints just never did. They waited too long to be able to come back. They almost pulled it out at the end with an onside kick that they should have gotten back, and it just didn't turn out that way. Drew Brees has been cleared to practice, so he is going to be able to play in this game if they want him to. I don't think they're going to have him play. I think they're going to stick with Taysom Hill. Kansas City's run defense is absolutely terrible. Their pass defense is pretty good, but it's not great. I think Michael Thomas is going to have a big game in this one. He's just going to get all his yardage underneath like he always does. He'll have 10 or 12 receptions in this game. Alvin Kamara was finally used last week. I think he's going to be used again this week even more because Kansas City's run defense is so bad. On the other side of the ball, Tyreek Hill can't be stopped. He has 16 touchdowns so far this year. Patrick Mahomes had 2 interceptions coming into last week. He had 3 last week, so now he has 5 on the year. He's not going to have 3 interceptions again this week. The secondary in New Orleans hasn't been great this year, but they're getting a lot better. Their defense was playing out of their mind the past month up until last week when they didn't play great. That being said, I don't know why. Maybe it's my heart, maybe it's my head, maybe I'm just an idiot, but I don't think that the Chiefs are going to go 15-1 this year. I do think they're the better team. I think they're the best team in the NFL right now, but the Saints know they have to keep up to try and see if they can get the number 1 seed if Green Bay happens to slip up. This is in New Orleans. There's going to be probably 3,000 fans there. I think Sean Payton's going to be able to draw something up, and I do think somehow, I don't know how, but I think the Saints are going to be able to pull out a victory.
Chiefs come in off a, let's say, sloppy win. They got the W at the end, but it wasn't pretty. It was not a pretty game for them at all. But I'm always confident in them because of this offense. I love Patrick Mahomes. Love this kid, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You got Tyreek Hill there. You got Travis Kelce there. I know Lev Bell is complaining that he isn't seeing enough touches. They don't really need you, dude. Sorry. You should have known that coming there. Not when they got this kid, Clyde Edwards-Helaire there. The Saints, meanwhile, I have been impressed with what I've seen out of Taysom Hill because I always was the type of person that believed that he was just a gadget type QB. But he showed in these last 2 games that he actually can throw the ball as well. And he's actually had passing touchdowns. He's got Michael Thomas there. On his ground game, he always has Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray there. This should be, of all the games that I'm confident are going to be fun to watch, this will be the most interesting because both of these teams have something to play for. And that is to stay in the discussion. The Saints want to take over the number 1 spot. And the only way they can take over the number 1 seed in the NFC is to be able to jump over the Packers. If they can get this win against the Chiefs, who don't really need it, they are a game ahead, then yeah, they can make that jump and be the number 1 seed and get the bye week. I would love to give it to the Saints, but at the end of the day, I got to lean the other way. I just have a little bit more confidence in the Chiefs, but this is going to be a close, tight matchup because the way both these defenses are playing. So definitely for me personally, got to give it to the Chiefs. Next up, we got the 9-4 Cleveland Browns headed to New York to face the 5-8 Giants. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, the Giants were playing pretty good on offense and defense coming into last week. They had beaten Seattle the week before. Last week, Arizona just came in there and ran over them. Daniel Jones did not look good. They think he tweaked his hamstring again, so he may be out for this coming week. That really hurt the entire team. I think whether he's in there or out this week, it's going to be very tough. Cleveland is coming off an amazing Monday night game. They know they're going to just run the ball with Nick Chubb. They're going to run the ball with Kareem Hunt, who was the number 4 overall fantasy running back this week. Baker Mayfield's been playing very good the past couple weeks with Ricard Higgins Watkins as well as Jarvis Landry, with Hooper's been doing a couple things as well. He didn't play last week. He was out, but maybe if he had done something, they would have been, if he had gotten a couple touches, they could have done something, but I doubt it because that was just a run. The first 8 touchdowns of the game last week against the Ravens total were in the run game. It's going to be much of the same this week. We know that the secondary with the Giants is very good. James Bradbury has been playing out of his mind this year. He should be an all-pro. That said, that's going to lead to even more rushing by Cleveland. Their offensive line is amazing. Nick Chubb is going to take over this game, and it's going to be a ground and pound game, and Cleveland's going to win it.
You guys, I don't have any faith whatsoever in the Giants, in particular if Daniel Jones is unable to play, which it's looking like is a possibility. We'll see come Sunday, but I don't have any faith in this team going against the Browns. Yes, Browns lost, but they lost a hell of a battle. My goodness, that was a fun game to watch against the Ravens. They didn't get blown out. They were keeping up with them all the way down to the very last seconds of this game. It was so good to see. They're going to be ready to come in there and stomp these Giants because they want to make up for that L that they took last week when they know daggone well they deserved the W if they had not left so much time left on the clock. You guys, I'm giving this one to the Browns. I don't even want to get into a whole full discussion. I just love the way this offense is playing. Like what I'm seeing out of Myles Garrett on that defense. Giving this game to the Browns. And last up, we got our Monday night matchup. We got the 11-2 Pittsburgh Steelers headed to Cincinnati to face the 2-10-1 Bengals. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this one's not going to be a contest. It would have been a lot better if Joe Burrow was still playing, but he's not. The team is pretty much folded. Geno Atkins is not going to be in this game either, so their defense is going to be even worse. Pittsburgh's coming off 2 straight losses. They're not going to lose 3 straight, especially to Cincinnati. Deontay Johnson should finally play in this game. Hopefully he won't have as many drops. Eric Ebron should dropping the ball as well. They still have Chase Claypool, who hasn't really been doing much the past couple weeks, but that could change this week. And Juju's actually been playing pretty good the past couple weeks, and he should continue as well. Ben Roethlisberger's been getting the ball out very quickly. He's been needing to because the offensive line has not been holding up. The running backs have not been doing much either. It's not going to matter in this game. They're going to do anything they want to against Cincinnati, and they're going to win this game.
The Bengals are terrible. I'm hoping this is another team. I hate to say it, but I hope they get rid of their head coach this offseason as well. I can't put it all on injuries for why this team is playing the way they are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the loss of Joe Burrow didn't have a significant factor, but even when he was in, they weren't playing well. Some of that really has to do with coaching. I've heard stories coming out of there. It's not good. So he needs to go. They're facing the Steelers. Steelers are coming in off a nasty L that they did not want to take. Definitely got to give this one to the Steelers. I like what I'm seeing out of this offense, you guys. I love this kid, Chase Claypool. It's another one. Steelers. That's all our matchups for this week. Dominic, people are in the playoff. They need you. Give me 1 start and 1 sit in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a deep start, especially now that we learned today that Hollywood Brown is likely going to be out with COVID. He hasn't really been the wide receiver 1 there anyway. It has been Willie Snead, but nobody wants to play him. This week, you definitely want to start up Willie Snead. He already had COVID. He's back. He had a decent game on Monday night. He goes against Jacksonville this week. They're 14-point favorites. They're probably going to win this game by 14. Between him and Mark Andrews, they're going to be the only people that are catching passes. So make sure you start up Willie Snead if you are really desperate for a wide receiver this week. He could easily get you a wide receiver too. And since it is the playoffs and you don't really want to avoid playing anybody, another start I'm going to give you, and this is a deep one. Hopefully you don't have to start him because there's other quarterbacks out there, but Dallas's defense is complete trash. We know that San Francisco is going to throw the ball. We know Nick Mullins throws the ball. He averages over 275 yards per game. He's going to get you a touchdown or 2 in this game to Brandon Ayuk or to somebody else, maybe it'll be Jordan Reed. So if you're really stretching, or if you have somebody who's injured and you need somebody to play at the quarterback position, I'm going to tell you to start Nick Mullins.
Good luck, you guys. And I know you guys are heading into your championships next week, so good luck this week in these games. Well, you guys, that's all the time that we have. Want to thank everybody again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work at FantasyHotRead.com as well as Rotoballer.com and ExpandTheBoxScore.com.
That's all the time we have, you guys. See you back here next week.